What would you do if you opened the door to your past, and three little faces called you Daddy? This is the heart-wrenching story of Angelo Del Rio, a billionaire who thought he'd closed the door on love forever. But what happens when the truth unravels, and the family he never knew he had comes rushing in? Stay tuned to Dark Voices for a tale of heartbreak, redemption, and second chances. What would you do if you saw Claire again, and realized you still loved her? Would you go back to her, even though she cheated on you back then? It's been 7 years. I don't think I feel anything for her anymore, said Yumi. That's a long time, she added. It's impossible you still love her now. Her tone had a tinge of sarcasm, but deep down, she couldn't help wondering why he never looked for anyone else in all those years. Since your marriage ended, you haven't gone on a single date. Not even a casual one. It's like you've been too scared to open your heart again. So, I wouldn't be surprised if those feelings come back once you see her face again. Can you imagine standing in front of the home you once dreamed of filling with joy, only to be greeted by 3 children you never knew existed? That's exactly what happened to Angelo. Keep watching Dark Voices to find out how this billionaire's life changed in an instant. Angelo didn't like where the conversation was going. He abruptly stood up and left Yumi alone in his office. Even though he had returned to the United States only to reclaim the house from his ex-wife, he decided to go through with his plan. Now standing in front of the house he once shared with Claire back when they were still married, Angelo Del Rio felt a wave of uncertainty. So much had changed since the last time he set foot here. Time had passed, and he wasn't sure if he could even cross the threshold again, the same threshold he once thought would be the doorway to a lifetime of joyful memories. He took a deep breath, raised his hand, and slowly pressed the doorbell. A few seconds later, the door swung open. Standing before him were 3 small children, triplets. They looked almost identical with the same sparkling eyes. Angelo was stunned. He stepped back slightly, staring in disbelief. "Daddy," the children yelled in unison. They ran toward him, wrapping their small arms around him tightly, as if they'd been waiting for this moment all their lives. This is Dark Voices, ready to take you through another extraordinary life-changing story. Claire Monroe was a good mother. Her triplets, Silas, Javier, and Eller, were proud of her. She was known as a loving parent who always put her children first. It had been more than 7 years since she separated from her husband, Wayne Angelo Del Rio. He never found out she had triplets because right before Claire discovered she was pregnant, Angelo had already left her. It was sudden. No warning, no explanation. He filed for divorce and disappeared, leaving Claire confused and heartbroken. Maybe that's why Angelo had insisted they get married in Germany, because it was easier to get a divorce there compared to the US, where it wasn't legal at the time. Despite being married and all the promises they made, Claire began to realize it might have been his plan all along. They were young. She was just 20 when they got married, and Angelo was 22. Maybe over time, he realized he never really loved her. Or maybe his feelings simply faded. When he decided to walk away, it left her wondering if she had done something wrong or if he simply stopped loving her. When Claire found out she was pregnant with triplets, she held on to the hope of starting a new life with them. She knew being a single mother would be hard, but she chose to move forward. She poured all her attention and love into raising the children. Since then, she raised the kids on her own. It wasn't easy, but despite the pain of the past, Claire made sure her children felt secure and loved. She became their anchor. She was the kind of mother who never missed a milestone in her children's lives. She worked nonstop, giving everything she could, even when she was exhausted or sick. She loved her triplets more than anything, and made sure they never felt the absence of a father, thanks to the love and guidance she gave them. With every step the triplets took in growing up, Claire became stronger because she knew her children needed a mother who was brave, resilient, and dependable no matter the challenges. "Do you really not want to get married again, Claire?" her friend Shannon suddenly asked. "I don't need a husband," Claire replied playfully. "But your kids are growing up, and you're getting busier at work. You also need someone who can help raise them." She sighed deeply. "I don't want to. I can still raise my kids on my own. And even if I did remarry, what if it hurts the kids? Especially since they still believe their father is coming back to us. Well, maybe you should have told them the truth already, that you and Angelo are no longer together. That way, they wouldn't be waiting for a worthless dad, Shannon replied bluntly. You know why I haven't told them? One day I'll tell their father about them, and then he'll be part of their lives. Shannon fell silent after that. Claire gave her a forced smile, then picked up a glass of water. A few minutes later, she said goodbye to Shannon. She still had to go to work. You're early today, Claire, said her boss, Mr. Knight. Yes, sir. There wasn't much traffic, she replied. She'd been Mr. Knight's secretary for 3 years. He was a kind man and didn't mind if she occasionally came in late. Aren't the kids with you today? He asked. Usually, if the kids didn't have school, she would bring them to the office. There was no one else to watch them, and her boss never had a problem with it since the children were well behaved and didn't make a fuss. They would just sit quietly in the waiting area or play. Someone's watching them today. I only bring them when their nanny is off and I have to work, she explained. Oh, I see. That's too bad. I was hoping to see them again. I even bought them a little something. You can just give it to them for me. Oh, you really didn't have to, sir, she said shyly. It's okay. Besides, they're your kids, and kids love chocolates, he said with a smile. Though embarrassed, Claire thanked her boss. He seemed to be growing fond of her children, too. When she got home, the triplets were thrilled by Mr. Knight's gift. Chocolates were their favorite, just like their father, Angelo, who had a sweet tooth, too. One afternoon, as the kids arrived home from school, she immediately noticed how sad they looked. Silas, one of the triplets, was holding back tears. His eyes were red, still wet with the ones that had fallen. Claire ran to him, alarmed. Silas, sweetheart, why are you crying? Isa and Silas exchanged glances, unsure how to explain. Then Javier spoke up. Mommy, someone bullied Silas at school today. Claire's brow furrowed. She gently stroked Silas's hair and asked softly, Who hurt you, honey? What happened? Silas sniffled and answered in a trembling voice. They said I was weak and clumsy, that I can't play with them, and it's because I don't have a daddy. He covered his face as fresh tears rolled down. Claire hugged her son tightly, letting him cry in her arms. Isa came closer, gently holding Silas's hand. Don't cry, Silas, Isa said. Mommy's here. She'll scold the kids who bullied us today. But, Mommy, Javier said seriously, clearly upset about what happened to his brother. Javier was the bravest among the three, often defending his siblings. It's not fair what those kids did to Silas. They pushed him on the playground and then laughed at him. They said he wasn't as strong as us. Then they called us freaks because we don't have a dad. Don't worry, Silas, Claire said, gently rubbing her son's back. I'm here for you. What those kids did was wrong. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. Tomorrow, I'll take you to school myself and talk to your teacher. I'll also talk to those bullies so they won't hurt you anymore. Silas nodded, though his face still showed sadness. Go rest now, kids, Claire said softly. But before she could stand, Silas asked again, Mommy, is Daddy really coming home? Why does it seem like you don't want him to come back? My classmates said we're fake because we don't have a daddy like they do. Your daddy will come home eventually, Claire replied. But don't listen to what others say. You're not fake, okay? Your daddy's just really busy with work in another country. That doesn't mean he won't ever come back. Don't believe those mean things they say. They're just being cruel because they have nothing better to do. He'll come back. Not now, but I know he will, she added. He's been gone so long he doesn't even call us, Isa said. But you talk to him sometimes, right? Claire replied. The children had no idea that she and Angelo had been separated for a long time. They didn't know that he had left her before they were even born. All their lives, they had believed that their father was simply away working abroad. Claire had struggled to tell them the truth, especially since they believed he would return someday. She just couldn't bear to hurt them. We talk to him, but we never see his face, Isa said. Sometimes he even sounds like Uncle Max. That Uncle Max, Maxwell, was Claire's friend and godfather to the triplets. He often pretended to be their dad on calls just to make the children feel better. Your dad's boss is really strict, and he signed a contract that doesn't allow him to make personal calls, Claire lied. Even if he wants to talk to you, he can't unless they let him. There's nothing we can do about it. She didn't plan on lying to them forever. She wanted to tell them the truth one day. She just hadn't found the right time. Daddy's boss is so mean, Isa muttered. He won't even let Daddy talk to us. That's just how it is, sweetie. But remember, Daddy is doing all this for you. He wants you to have a good life so you can have everything you want. But, Mommy, we don't need a fancy life or material things, Javier said. We just want to be with Daddy. As the triplets grew, they became more aware, and it became harder and harder to lie to them. Their questions about their father kept growing. Fortunately, that day they didn't press too hard. The next day, just as she promised, Claire brought the kids to school herself. She spoke with their teacher, asking her to please keep an eye out for any classmates who might try to bully the triplets. The teacher apologized and assured her that she'd be more watchful. Meanwhile, Angelo Del Rio had been thinking seriously about returning to the Philippines to reclaim the house from his ex-wife. He wasn't happy with what he had been hearing from Claire's mother. According to her, Claire had been bringing all sorts of men into the house. Something Angelo felt was extremely disrespectful. He hadn't heard anything about Claire since their divorce. In fact, he hadn't wanted to hear anything about her. Every time he heard her name, he was reminded of the betrayal he believed she committed years ago. Then, after so many years without any updates, Claire's mother reached out to him. She told him everything she claimed was happening at the house they once shared as husband and wife. He never imagined that the reason behind their separation could go deeper than he thought. But now, even the house he had bought during their marriage, the one they had once dreamed of filling with happy memories, was being used to entertain other men. According to her mother, after several weeks of mulling it over, Angelo decided to return to the Philippines to reclaim the mansion he built. He wouldn't let it go that easily. Are you planning to get back together with Claire? Yumi asked him. I just want my house back. Yumi pouted and sat down on the sofa. What if you see her again and fall for her all over? Come on, we both know how crazy I was about her back then, Angelo said. I even stopped talking to you, my childhood best friend, because of her, but that won't happen again. I've learned from my mistakes. I won't let my feelings for Claire drive me crazy this time. Yumi sighed deeply. So, you're just going to take the house and go back to the States? Of course, I can't abandon the company. What if you see her again and realize you're still in love with her? What then? Will you go back to her even though she cheated on you? It's been 7 years. I doubt I still have feelings for her, he said. That was a long time ago. It's impossible I still love her. But there was a hint of irritation in his voice. In the 7 years since they separated, he hadn't dated anyone, not even casually. It was as if he was still holding on to her. You haven't even gone out on a friendly date, Yumi continued. You've been so closed off. I won't be surprised if your feelings come back when you see her again. Angelo didn't like the conversation. He stood up and left Yumi alone in his office. Even though he had come back to the Philippines to take the house from his ex-wife, he decided to go through with the plan. Standing in front of the house he once shared with his wife, the same house that was also his before he even met Claire, Angelo Del Rio couldn't help but feel uncertain. So much had changed since he last set foot there. So much time had passed, and he didn't know if he could bring himself to step inside the home he once thought would be filled with joyful memories of marriage. He took a deep breath, raised his hand, and slowly pressed the doorbell. A few seconds later, the door opened, revealing 3 small children, triplets, who looked nearly identical, and had the same bright sparkle in their eyes. Angelo was stunned. He even took a small step back, staring at them in disbelief at what he was seeing. Daddy, the kids cried out in unison. They quickly ran to him and hugged him tightly as if they had been waiting for his arrival for a long time. Angelo stood frozen, unable to move, overwhelmed by the warmth of their embrace, something that immediately softened the coldness he had carried in his heart for so long. He couldn't speak right away. He was savoring the unexpected affection from these children he never thought would greet him this way. "We missed you so much, Daddy," said one of the kids, hugging his leg tightly, refusing to let go. "We're so happy you're here now," another child chimed in. The third one, a girl, looked up at him with joy sparkling in her eyes. "It's a good thing you came home. We've been waiting so long. Mommy said it would still be a while before you could come back." At that moment, Angelo's heart melted. He had never seen these children before, but it felt as though he had known them forever. There was something about them, something deeply familiar. He couldn't explain why he suddenly felt so close to them. Angelo knelt in front of the kids, their faces still full of joy and eyes still wet with tears. "Are you Claire Monroe's children?" he asked them. "Yes, I'm Javier," one of the boys introduced himself. "I'm Ella," said the girl. The third child, already hugging him tightly, added, "I'm Silas." "We're your kids, too, Daddy." Angelo's face showed clear confusion. He couldn't understand why they were calling him Daddy. He couldn't remember ever having children with Claire. Maybe they were hers with another man. Maybe someone she was seeing back then. But if they were indeed the children of another man, why would Claire introduce Angelo as their father? And why were these children so happy to see him? Looking closely, Angelo noticed something unsettling. The two boys had a strong resemblance to him, the shape of their eyes, the slightly curly hair, the shape of their noses. It was like looking at his younger self. And the girl, she looked exactly like Claire. Her gentle eyes, her soft smile. She was the spitting image of her mother. Angelo couldn't move. He was frozen, staring at the children, trying to make sense of what was happening. One of the boys tugged gently on his shirt. "Daddy, why are you looking at us like that?" Angelo didn't answer right away, but he forced a smile to reassure them. "So, you're really my children?" The three kids nodded eagerly, their faces lighting up. "Yes, Daddy. We've been waiting for you for so long. Mommy said you'd take a while to come home, but we think you just wanted to surprise us. That's probably why she looked so happy before she left." Isa was still holding his hand tightly, not wanting to let go. "That's why we're so happy now that you're here. We're not freaks anymore because we have a daddy now," Silas added cheerfully. Angelo couldn't help but feel both joy and sorrow. It was a strange mix of emotions he hadn't felt in a long time. He never expected that upon his return, 3 children who might be his own would greet him like this, with so much love and acceptance. It felt like he had been lost for so long. But now, standing there with these kids who looked like him, who called him Daddy, who welcomed him without hesitation, something in his heart whispered that this was home. Still holding the triplets in his arms, Angelo suddenly heard footsteps approaching from inside the house. A woman appeared at the door, clearly in a hurry, carrying some toys. She froze when she saw him, her brows furrowed in confusion. "Who are you?" the nanny asked, clearly surprised and worried. Angelo paused before answering. In a quiet voice, he said, "I'm Waken Angelo Del Rio." Upon hearing that, the nanny's eyes widened in disbelief. She stepped back in shock. You're Waken Angelo Del Rio?" The children looked up at her with excitement. "Nanny, it's him. He's our daddy. He's finally home," one of the boys shouted gleefully. "Yeah, Nanny. This is Daddy," the girl added, happily, gripping his hand. Angelo looked at the nanny, studying her reaction. She clearly knew who he was. Still, he couldn't believe what was happening. So many questions filled his mind, and he knew only one person could answer them, his ex-wife, Claire. When the nanny stepped aside and went back inside, Angelo followed her. The moment he stepped into what was once their home, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. Memories from the past came rushing back, hitting him like crashing waves. Ma'am Claire usually comes home late. She often works overtime, the nanny explained. But she promised the kids she'd try to come home early today, so maybe she'll be back sooner than usual. I see. I'll wait for her, Angelo replied coolly. Sitting on the sofa, Angelo wore a cold, serious expression. His brows were furrowed, and he showed no emotion. He quietly sipped his water while the triplets happily surrounded him, completely unaware of the tension he carried. We've waited so long for you, Dad, said Javier. But Angelo couldn't help but keep staring at the children, his eyes studying every feature, searching for answers. Now that you're here, we're so happy, Isla added, her eyes glimmering with excitement. Still, Angelo remained seated, his face expressionless, trying not to be affected by the presence of the children who kept calling him Daddy. But despite his efforts to suppress his emotions, their sweet voices and affectionate gestures began to melt his cold heart. While he sat quietly, deep in thought, he suddenly heard a voice from the door. Kids, I'm home. The cheerful call of the children's mother was accompanied by the sound of the front door opening. The triplets immediately turned their heads, and so did Angelo. His brows drew together slightly, but his expression stayed cold. When Claire saw her children, a smile automatically formed on her lips, but it instantly disappeared when her eyes landed on Angelo. She froze. Her eyes widened. She stood still in shock, completely stunned by what she saw. It was as if the world stopped turning the moment she saw Angelo standing there. He looked back at her, his expression cold and unreadable despite the sting in his chest. Angelo, Claire whispered, just loud enough for him to hear. Her voice trembled, she couldn't take her eyes off him, completely shocked and clearly unprepared to see him again under these circumstances. Angelo's gaze remained cold and emotionless, even though pain stirred inside him. Claire was speechless, frozen in place. The children, oblivious to the tension around them, ran joyfully toward their mother and hugged her tightly, excitedly telling their stories. Mommy, Daddy's home, Silas said, his eyes sparkling with joy. Yes, Mommy, another child added. His boss finally allowed him to come home, so now he's here. Angelo's face grew even colder, confused by what he was hearing. Why did they think he had just returned from a long work trip abroad? What had Claire told them? Why did they believe he had been away for work all these years? Angelo slowly stood up from the couch, his eyes still fixed on Claire and the children who were overjoyed by his presence. Despite his outward coldness, his heart and mind were beginning to unravel. There was only one question echoing in his head, and as he looked at Claire and the children, he finally spoke. Are they really my kids? Claire swallowed hard. With a slow, deep breath, she nodded. Yes, she said quietly, but loud enough for Angelo to hear. They're your children. You're their father. Angelo froze. Despite the ache in his chest, he kept his composure. He stared at her, his cold eyes shielding the turmoil underneath. He couldn't help the sting of doubt that rose within him. Why didn't I know? He asked again, this time more softly, but with deeper intensity. The question was filled with pain. Claire lowered her gaze. It was clear she struggled to answer. Angelo waited in silence, hoping to finally hear the explanation he had been longing for. Claire swallowed again, summoning the courage to speak. She stepped closer and whispered, her voice heavy with emotion. Angelo, can we not talk about this in front of the kids? Please, she pleaded, almost begging. I don't want them to hear anything unpleasant. Angelo glanced at the triplets, still unaware of the tension. He stayed silent, but his face showed understanding. He knew this wasn't the time or place for a painful discussion. He exhaled slowly, trying to calm himself, then gave a small nod. Fine, he said, but I need to hear the explanation later. His voice was still cold, but there was a faint softness in his eyes as he looked at the children. Claire breathed a little easier. Don't worry, I'll explain everything, she promised. I've been waiting a long time for this moment so I could tell you everything. While the two of them spoke, the children gradually approached, their eyes filled with hope and joy. Daddy, are you going to live with us again? Silas asked, eyes wide with curiosity. Are you done with work abroad? The little girl took Angelo's hand and held it tightly, her excitement hard to contain. Are we going to live together now, Daddy? We really want that. Angelo gave a faint smile, lips barely moving, his eyes still clouded with unresolved questions. I don't know, he replied quietly. Daddy, please live here with us, Javier begged. We don't want to be apart again. Let's stay together. He hugged Angelo tightly. Please don't leave again, Daddy. Please don't go back to work abroad. Stay with us. We don't need material things, Isla added, wrapping her arms around Angelo. It's enough for us to be with you at home. All our classmates live with both their parents, she said. We want that, too. Please, Daddy. Silas hiccuped between sobs. Don't leave. Stay with us so we won't be apart again. Overwhelmed by the children's desperate wishes, Angelo was silent. He couldn't respond, the weight in his chest growing heavier. Claire noticed his struggle and stepped in. She bent down and gently addressed her children. Kids, she said softly. Daddy needs to talk to his boss abroad first. He needs to know if he's allowed to stay here. The triplets paused, glancing at Angelo with hopeful eyes. But when he couldn't give them an answer, their faces began to fall. Please, Daddy, one of the boys whispered. We hope your boss lets you stay. We just want to be together. Please don't leave us, the little girl pleaded, staring into his eyes. I hope so, too, Angelo thought silently, still unable to say the words aloud. Soon after, Claire called the nanny to watch the kids while she and Angelo had a private conversation. Once the kids were with the nanny, Claire and Angelo stepped out to the balcony. Tell me the truth, Claire, Angelo said, his voice serious. Are they really mine, or did you have them with another man, and you're just passing them off as mine because their real father didn't take responsibility? Claire looked at him, her face calm. I don't know if you'll believe me, but I've never been with another man, Angelo. Not when we were married. Not even after we separated. I chose to focus on our children. I don't need to prove anything. I know you're their father. Angelo shook his head. I don't believe you, Claire. After everything, I don't know if I can trust you. Sadness flickered across Claire's eyes. I understand it's hard to believe, especially after all this time, but I'm telling the truth. She hesitated before continuing. I only lied to the kids. I told them you were working abroad and under a strict contract. I didn't want them to grow up hurt or angry. They believe we're still married. They think you've just been away for work. I didn't tell them that you left me before they were even born. Angelo listened, his heart heavy. Her words stung, but he couldn't stop himself from asking. If they're really mine, why didn't you tell me sooner? Why did you keep them from me all this time? Claire looked down. You were the one who left. Remember? I was left all alone. Even my own family turned their backs on me. I had no idea where to find you. I didn't know where to go or who to ask. She met his eyes again, tears falling freely now. I wanted to tell you. I wanted to let you know I was pregnant, but I couldn't. I didn't know where you were. You disappeared. Her voice broke as she added, I didn't mean for things to turn out this way. I didn't want this. Angelo didn't respond right away. He just stood there, taking in her pain, his heart torn by guilt and doubt. Angelo, Claire said, her voice shaking. I didn't mean to hide them from you. I've just been trying to protect them, to protect their hearts. If you still don't believe me, she added, then go ahead, get a DNA test. I won't stop you. It's better that way. At least then you'll know the truth. Their conversation was interrupted when the triplets returned. They looked confused when they saw their mother crying, but Claire quickly wiped her tears and smiled. She told them she was just happy because their dad had finally come home. Later that afternoon, the kids begged Angelo to put them to sleep. They said it was something they had always dreamed of. Angelo couldn't say no, so he stayed with them, gently helping them fall asleep. After they drifted off, he quietly stepped out of the room. He was planning to leave the house and talk to Claire the next day about reclaiming the property. The children's pleas from earlier were still echoing in his mind, but he pushed those thoughts aside. He wasn't ready to open the doors of his heart, the same heart that had long hidden away the pain of the past. As Angelo walked through the living room, he heard Clare call from behind. She stood up from the couch and approached him. "Are you leaving?" she asked. Angelo stopped and looked at her, then quickly turned away. He couldn't bring himself to meet her eyes directly. "Yes," he replied coldly. His voice was flat and emotionless. "Start looking for a new place," he added. "I'm going to sell this house. I don't want any reminders of our past." Claire stared at him, stunned by his words. But she simply nodded, even though the pain tore through her chest. "Okay," she said quietly, her eyes avoiding his. She didn't have the strength to argue. If that was his decision, she would endure it. "Can you just give me enough time?" Claire asked. "I'm waiting for my next paycheck. Once I get it, I'll start looking for a place for me and the kids." "Do you need a month?" he asked coldly. Claire slowly nodded. "Yes, I promise. Before the month ends, I'll find a place for the kids and me." Angelo nodded slightly and was about to walk away when Claire spoke again, making him stop and turn back around. "If it turns out the triplets really are your kids, and you can't accept them, can you just leave again without telling them why?" she said, looking him straight in the eye. "I just don't want them to get hurt by knowing their father didn't want them." Angelo didn't respond. He walked out of the house, got into his car, and drove away. As he drove down the dark road, he couldn't help but remember the triplets' faces, the joy in their eyes, the dreams they had of being a complete family. "Please stay here with us, Daddy. We've waited for you for so long." Their smiles, their voices, the way they hugged him, all of it returned to him as if they had been etched into his memory forever. And yet, the ache in his chest only grew stronger. As he approached an intersection, he suddenly felt something pulling at him. He realized he wasn't heading toward the hotel where he was staying. His hands had turned the wheel on their own. He was going back to the mansion. Something in his heart told him it was the right thing to do. Despite the confusion and pain, he returned to the place where the children were waiting. And there, at the doorway, stood Clare. She was surprised when a car suddenly pulled up in front of the mansion. Her eyes widened when she saw Angelo step out. She waited a few moments before mustering the courage to approach him. "Why did you come back?" she asked, her voice mixed with fear and a desperate hope that her guess was right. Angelo was quiet for several seconds. "I'm staying here," he finally said. Claire was stunned. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "What? Why?" she asked, more confused than ever. Angelo took a deep breath. "I realized I can't leave the kids. I'm still not sure if they're really mine, but I don't want to let them down. I don't know what's going to happen," he added. "But those kids, they're the reason I came back." Claire still looked overwhelmed and unsure how to respond. She just stared at Angelo, trying to process the meaning behind his words. The silence between them stretched. Angelo looked down, deep in thought. "I want a DNA test," he said firmly. "While we wait for the results, I'll stay here in our house. If I find out they're not mine, I'll leave." Claire didn't answer right away. After a long moment, she nodded. "All right, if that's what you want," she said, her voice carrying both sadness and resignation. "Stay here if that's how you want to confirm the truth." Their eyes met again, and in that moment, something passed between them. Something unresolved. Angelo told her to just have the rest of his things sent over from the hotel. Claire accompanied him to the room he would stay in. When they entered, she led him to a vacant but spacious guest room. She drew open the curtains and avoided his gaze. "This will be your temporary room," she said, pointing to the bed and the few furnishings inside. Her voice was hesitant, uncertain of what kind of reaction Angelo might have. Angelo looked around the room. He clearly wasn't pleased. His eyes scanned the simple furniture, the plain walls with barely any decoration, and the dim lighting that failed to warm the room's cold atmosphere. "Humph," Angelo muttered, then asked, "Who sleeps in our old room?" Claire looked straight at him. "I do." Oh, Angelo replied with a soft laugh. So, you still sleep there? He added the remark with a trace of amusement and a faint smile. He walked over to the bed and sat down, his expression serious, his eyes thoughtful. Do you remember what we used to do there? He asked, looking directly at Clare. Clare froze. His words brought back memories. Those days when they were still married, moments she thought she had buried. Simple but unforgettable times. She turned her eyes away quickly, her heart pounding. Why are you asking me that? She said nervously. Angelo smirked slightly, especially after hearing her falter. I just want to know if you still think about our past when you lie on that bed or when you're in that room, the place where we may have created the triplets. I replaced the bed in there a long time ago, Claire said. It's not the same bed we used to sleep in. That one's long gone, probably burned by now. Angelo's expression shifted, his smile disappeared, and his gaze turned tense, eyes avoiding hers. Is that so? I mean, who would want to keep using that bed, right? He said. It must have been pretty awkward making love with other men while remembering what we did there. As I told you earlier, Claire said calmly, I never brought any man into this house. I don't know where you're getting that idea from, but I'm not going to force you to believe me. It's up to you. If you have nothing else to say, I'll leave you here. I promised the kids I'd cook them dinner tonight. They've been asking for it. With that, she turned and left the room. Angelo remained seated on the bed. After a while, he ran his hands through his hair in frustration. He felt his phone vibrate in his pocket and pulled it out. But when he saw that it was Yumi calling, he turned it off. He didn't want to deal with her. Not now. He read her messages, too. All of them were warnings not to fall for Claire again, but he didn't bother replying. His mind was already in chaos. A few moments later, he left the room. Instead of going downstairs, he quietly walked to the children's room to watch them sleep. It wasn't long before the triplets woke up and were overjoyed to see their dad still there. They had thought it was just a dream, that he had returned. When they realized it was real, their happiness only grew. Meanwhile, Claire was in the kitchen preparing dinner. From the living room, she could hear the kids laughing joyfully. The children were playing hide and seek, and Angelo was joining in. He was it. Claire smiled. She knew how much her children had longed for moments like this, and now it was finally happening. Daddy, stay right there, Silas shouted as he ran toward Angelo, laughing loudly. Isla and Javier joined in, giggling as they hid behind the sofa and under the table. Angelo, though not used to such a lively scene, couldn't help but smile, even if part of him still felt uneasy. Don't hide under the table. You might hit your heads, he warned gently, chasing after Silas. Silas laughed even harder. And in that moment, Angelo's heart felt full from the children's simple joy. After a few minutes, Claire finished preparing the food. She called out to them from the kitchen, dinner's ready, kids. Let's eat. The three children ran excitedly to their mom. When she told them to head to the kitchen, they rushed ahead and scrambled to find seats at the table. Angelo, however, hesitated. He looked out of place, unsure of what to do. Eventually, he approached Claire. There was a nervousness in his steps. When their eyes met, both of them felt a mixture of warmth and discomfort in their chests. Let's eat, Claire said, her voice a bit uneasy. Okay, Angelo replied briefly. Claire turned away from him and returned to the kitchen. She could feel Angelo silently following behind her. She walked over to the dining area where the kids had already set up one side of the table. Angelo quietly took a seat as well, uncertain how to act around them. Looking at the scene, Angelo couldn't help but remember what they had once dreamed about. Before getting married, he and Claire had talked about having a big family, lots of children to fill the house with laughter. They had imagined eating meals together like this, sharing stories around the dinner table. Now, it was as if that dream had come true. Daddy, Isa said, tapping his shoulder. Stay with us always, okay? It's more fun to eat when you're with us, and Mommy's food tastes even better when you're here. Angelo smiled slightly. I'll try to stay for now, he answered gently. As the meal began, everyone started eating together. Angelo was quiet throughout while Claire busied herself tending to the kids' needs, but even as she moved around, she couldn't help but smile. Seeing how happy her children were to have their father home warmed her heart that night. As Angelo lay in the guest room, a strange feeling of peace came over him. In every corner of the house, he felt the warmth of love he hadn't known in years. From the children's room, he could hear Claire's soft voice telling them a bedtime